California's high-speed rail was supposed to be a game changer, a futuristic transit system linking the state's biggest cities at 220 miles per hour. But after decades of delays, political fights, and skyrocketing costs, it's become one of the most controversial infrastructure projects in US history. Over $10 billion has already been spent, yet the project's future remains uncertain. Is this a groundbreaking leap forward, or a cautionary tale of ambition gone off the rails? Let's break down what's been built, what's left, and where California's bullet train really stands today. California's high-speed rail has been in the works for decades. First proposed in 1979 under Governor Jerry Brown, an early attempt to connect Los Angeles and San Diego in the 1980s eventually failed. In 1996, the state established the California High-Speed Rail Authority. And in 2008, voters approved Proposition 1A, allocating $9 billion to kickstart the project. By 2023, funding had reached $23 billion, but projected Phase 1 costs soared to well over $100 billion, and more on this in a minute. Designed to rival air travel, high-speed rail promises a 2-hour and 40-minute trip between San Francisco and LA, far faster than driving or existing train services. The San Francisco-LA Air Corridor is the busiest in the US, making rail a potential game changer. It could also reshape housing markets, linking workers to affordable homes in the Central Valley. The project's environmental benefits include cutting CO2 emissions by 0.6 million tons annually. The 2024 State Rail Plan envisions a fully integrated rail network by 2050, and while delays persist, the vision remains: a faster, more connected California. The megaproject is broken up into two primary phases. Phase 1 will span 494 miles, connecting San Francisco to LA via the Central Valley, while Phase 2 extends north to Sacramento and south to San Diego. Currently, the authority is prioritizing the initial operating segment, or IOS, a 171-mile stretch between Merced and Bakersfield, with 119 miles under active construction. Phase 1 will feature a mix of shared and dedicated high-speed tracks, allowing speeds of up to 220 miles per hour. Urban areas like San Francisco and LA will integrate high-speed trains with existing commuter rail networks, limiting speeds to 110 miles per hour. The southern section requires complex tunneling through the Tehachapi and San Gabriel Mountains, adding another layer of engineering challenges. With Phase 1 funding in flux, the focus is on the IOS, which is expected to be operational by 2031 to 2033. The first 119 miles are over 70% complete, with remaining sections set for construction in 2025 to 26. Originally planned to reach Burbank, funding constraints shortened the IOS, though future expansions will prioritize Bay Area connections before extending to LA. High-speed rail service will rely on electric multiple units capable of 220 miles per hour. Due to a lack of domestic manufacturers, CHSRA shortlisted Alstom and Siemens Mobility in early 2024. The initial order includes 6 train sets, with 2 prototypes arriving in 2028 and 4 more for 2030 service. To comply with Buy America rules, manufacturing will take place in New York, though the first 2 prototypes may be built overseas. Phase 1 will feature 13 stations, with 5 funded in the IOS: Merced, Madera, Fresno, Kings Tulare, and Bakersfield. Express, local, and non-stop service patterns will be offered, with peak headways of 5 minutes. Target travel times include San Francisco to LA in 2 hours and 40 minutes, San Jose to LA in 2 hours and 10 minutes, and Sacramento to LA in 2 hours and 20 minutes. Projected ridership is significant. The Silicon Valley Bakersfield segment is expected to attract 12.2 million annual passengers, with full Phase 1 ridership reaching 28.4 million, which would far surpass Amtrak's Northeast Corridor at 12.1 million in 2023. Although construction beyond the IOS is on hold, the authority remains committed to full build-out as funding allows. The system will integrate with transit networks like Caltrain, BART, Amtrak, and Metrolink. A future connection with Brightline West could create a seamless high-speed link between Las Vegas and the rest of California. But now that we talked about the plan, let's talk about reality. The project relies primarily on state funding, supplemented by federal grants. By late 2023, the state had provided 76% of committed funds, with ongoing revenue from California's cap and trade auctions, or basically the price that businesses pay the state for greenhouse gas emissions. Inflation, up over 40% since 2008, has significantly increased costs. As of 2 years ago, $22.9 billion had been secured, with $11.2 billion spent. But at the same time, completing the IOS was estimated to cost between $28.5 and $35.3 billion. Major funding sources include Prop 1A, which authorized $9.95 billion in state bonds in 2008, with $950 million allocated to other rail projects like Caltrain electrification. By 2023, for the high-speed rail, $8.5 billion of these funds had been appropriated. Despite funding progress, financial challenges remain. A shortfall of $200 million to $7 billion is projected due to cost uncertainties and inflation. The authority is seeking further federal grants and an extension of cap-and-trade funding until 2050. Cost escalation has been dramatic. The Merced to Bakersfield section, initially estimated at $6.2 billion in 2008, was projected to cost $30.5 billion in 2024. The total cost of Phase 1, originally pegged at $33 billion, has soared to $106 billion. The project's future hinges on securing additional federal support as well as policy changes. Public debate over rising costs has focused on Phase 1. Early estimates were in nominal terms without adjusting for inflation. Since 2018, costs have been presented in years of expenditure terms, accounting for inflation-adjusted expenses and delays. But the opinion on this project from certain politicians and Californians may actually surprise you, especially given what we just talked about. The project has garnered strong support from political figures like former Governor Jerry Brown, who likened skepticism to doubts about past infrastructure successes. Arnold Schwarzenegger dismissed opposition as political provincialism, while Governor Gavin Newsom has taken a more cautious stance, backing only the Merced to Bakersfield segment. Local leaders, including Fresno's mayor and Merced's deputy city manager, see the project as an economic catalyst. Labor unions, such as the State Building and Construction Trades Council, stress the positive aspect of job creation, especially during downturns. Opposition has been strongest among California Republicans. Congressman Kevin McCarthy pledged to block federal funding, prioritizing water projects instead. Some state legislators argue the project is unrealistic given California's budget constraints. Certain Democrats have also voiced concerns, calling for more appropriate funding requests and responsible progress. But criticism extends beyond politics. The Train Riders Association of California questioned ridership projections and financial viability. The Sierra Club, once supportive, shifted priorities in 2014 toward other climate initiatives, and agricultural groups opposed the project over land use concerns. And let's talk about what's been happening very recently. A February 2025 report reveals a $6.5 billion funding gap for the 171-mile Merced to Bakersfield segment, pushing completion past 2033. Federal funding under Biden fell short, with $3.3 billion granted from the 2021 infrastructure law, far less than the expected $8 billion. The Trump administration previously revoked a $929 million grant and sought to reclaim $2.5 billion. Trump recently renewed criticism, calling it the worst managed project he had seen, but the High-Speed Rail Authority remains committed. Surprisingly to many, public sentiment has remained stable since Prop 1A's 2008 approval. A 2022 UC Berkeley poll found 56% support, including 73% of Democrats and 25% of Republicans. And a 2024 Newsweek poll showed 40% of Americans still see the project as worthwhile. Despite ongoing funding challenges, the High-Speed Rail Authority remains focused on completing the Central Valley segment. The project has been highly controversial for obvious reasons. Over the past few years, numerous reports have speculated that it could be cancelled entirely. Yet progress continues, at least for now. A more realistic scenario might be that the IOS is completed with any further expansion halted for the time being. Since I'm not from California, I'd love to hear what locals and others think about the project today. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And to keep this video under 10 minutes, I had to significantly condense the content. So if I missed anything important, also comment it below. At Buildcore, we're building America, one story at a time. We cover some of the most impressive and headline-grabbing projects across this great country, and with your help, the channel has grown to over 30,000 subscribers in just over a year. With that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.